Hello and welcome to Chapter 4, Creating and Developing Opportunities from the Entrepreneurship 3rd Edition textbook. In this chapter, we're going to be talking about creating and developing opportunities. One of the things about that you have to understand in business when you're starting a business is that you have to recognize opportunities, entrepreneurial opportunities, and mindset positions was going to make you take the action. As you remember, we talked about the entrepreneurial mindset. We're looking as to more specifically, how do you recognize opportunities and strategies for generating ideas from which opportunities are born. So what is an opportunity in entrepreneurship? When we look at it, we're looking at the three characteristics of business opportunities, right? What's the potential economic value that it has? How much value can it provide in the marketplace? Is it novelty or newness? Is it something brand new, or is it something that you're changing? And what is the perceived desirability? How much do people want that particular product or service, right? You could create all these, there's a lot of inventions being made every single day. If you look at the patent office or you look at the inventions, there's so many inventions being made. But however, what is the desirability of that particular invention that someone made? So you have to think about that as well. And again, what's the value, right? How much generating of a value do you have on that, right? We look at opportunity. What is that, right? It's the possibility of generating value through unique or desirable product or service that has not yet, of course, previously been exploited in a particular context, right? How much of that can you exploit? How much opportunity can you get from that? Innovation, invention, and of course, improvement or irrelevance, right? That is really one of the frameworks of one framework rating an idea for different dimensions, right? So innovation, really looking at the product or service, is it knowable, useful, and valuable, right? When you talk about innovation, does it bring any of those things? Is it useful or is it valuable? Inventions, right, similar to that innovation, but doesn't address demand, right? Again, if an invention doesn't have any appeal or reach a market appeal, it's pretty much useless. Again, as I said previously in the previous slide, there's people always making inventions. That's not the issue. The issue is, does it bring any value to the marketplace? You can create a product, you can invent anything you want, but does it really bring any value to the marketplace? Is someone willing to purchase that? Improvement, ideas that enhance existing products. You can improve upon something to make it to make a business, right? Or irrelevant, ideas that score low of both novelty and usefulness. So you honestly also don't have to create anything new. You can look at something and make improvement on an existing product. For example, a burger restaurant has been in existence for probably over the last 90, 80 years, right? There's been burger restaurants since the 1930s and 40s and such. But people have found a unique way to sell burgers at restaurants, right? They bring a different perspective from that way that it's being sold, right? From McDonald's selling fast, and all of a sudden people are bringing burger restaurants and selling it in a different, unique way in different marketplaces, right? That's something that make an improvement on that. So again, what areas can you look at an opportunity to make something of value and something that people are willing to pay for? Opportunities start with 1,000 ideas, right? First thing is idea generation. One of the most important things you could do is just bring out ideas. One of the things that I do, for example, and you can do as well, is carry around a notebook or even on your phone, have an app or your notes app or something else that you can just write your ideas down and just continue to write your ideas. Some ideas will be good, some ideas won't be good, and you just plug away at ideas and see what happens. Generate as many ideas as you can to find that quality one. Right? You need to find that qualitative one that's actually going to work and people going to actually pay for. The myth of an isolated inventor, right? Ideas don't spring, they don't appear magically from fully formed into our minds, right? Sometimes many of the most well-known inventions or things that happen evolve because of improvements made over the years from competition and substantial number of people working on them, right? From airplanes to Tesla to Thomas Edison making the light bulb. Like, you can't hold it within. You have to eventually let it out into the marketplace and see what happens. And that way you can improve upon that particular invention. So you have to do that. You just have to bring it. You can't just let it inside your head and expect people to actually like your idea, because no one's going to know about your idea. And again, just look at the iterations of the iPhone. When the iPhone first came out a number of years ago compared to now, the reason why the iPhone has gotten so much better over the years is because they let out the first one and then they tested out to see what people like and what they didn't like and how can make improvements upon that. Same thing with the iMac, same thing with tablets, same thing with computers and cars. And that's why cars, if you look at, for example, the Ford Mustang of the 1995 compared to now, there's been improvements upon it. You look at airplanes, you look at airline services, everything that you see today that has been made improvements upon. Even stores, right? Walmart and online stores they make improvements because of what they put out there, and that's how you can, also you got to put it out there to the marketplace. So building your idea generation skill set, right? Scanning for new opportunities, be alert, think, notice, and understand and act in a particular situation. Of course, your prior knowledge. A lot of times, prior knowledge brings plus alertness. So for example, if you're thinking about starting a business in, say, the restaurant industry, having restaurant industry experience is really going to help you scan new ideas. I'm not saying that just because you don't work in a restaurant doesn't mean you're going to have brand new ideas, but it does help that you working in that particular industry is going to potentially bring new ideas or ways to look at things. Connecting concepts to create, consciously making links between concepts and create new concepts. Biosensation, a mental process allows you to connect two things, unrelated and unconnectable, into something new. Pattern recognition, again, bringing two things into one can have a potential for success. For example, Pinstripes is a nationwide restaurant that has not only is a restaurant but it's also bowling. So combining bowling and a restaurant together, high luxury, there you have you have a business there. Lateral thinking is as defined by Edward de Bono. The mental process uses direct, indirect, and creative approaches to solve problems, right, allowing us to look at problems from different angles. That is perhaps one way to look at things. Look at it from a different angle, as the saying goes, right? If you're looking at a problem, look at it from a different perspective. Look at it from perhaps the customer's perspective or the creator's perspective. Just look at it from a different angle for ideas. Imagination-based strategies, approaches that involve suspending disbelief or dropping constraints. One of the things that some of the most successful individuals, for example, Elon Musk is one of them, right? He imagined, without any constraints, what could happen if we built an electric car? What can happen if we send rockets into space? From a private perspective, not from NASA, but from a private industry perspective. What does that look like? And so that's how you start building ideas, just letting things go and not having to worry about, the constraints. Some of the ways to also build your ideas is observing, right? That's one way. Focused observation is, everyone observes the world through a unique perspective, but what and how we observe impacts what we discover and do, right? Focused observation is shifting attention outward in order to look at the world in a new way. So shifting your focus can really make you look at the world differently. That's why experience plays a huge role as to how you see different opportunities. I'm not saying that just because you're 21 or an 18 or a 21-year-old doesn't mean you don't have enough experience to look at different things from a different perspective. But the more you gain experience, the more you get older and you gain experience in a particular field or an industry, you start to look at things differently from a different lens and a different perspective, especially when you're coming up with a business. It just makes you look at things differently. Collaboration to build new ideas as a group, right? Group people bring up ideas from each other. The good thing about group idea is that when you bring up an idea, you can bounce off things from each other. Will this work? Will this not work? What can we look at it differently? Osborne's group rules for brainstorming, right? Suspend all judgment, be open to all wild suggestions, generate as many ideas as possible, and put ideas together to improve on them. So again, when you're having that perspective of idea generation, just let it all out and put them together and improve upon them. The nominal group technique is a structured method for group brainstorming where people prefer to work in silence, and of course some group members may not be comfortable voicing them, so that may be a way of doing it, right? Identify the question as brainstorm, silent writing of group members, report, label ideas, and prioritize why they would work in a greater depth. So again, sometimes you have to work in silence and then bring it to a group. Sometimes people like that, but again, it depends on what you would like. The 4 pathways to opportunity identification, right? Valuable. Again, there is a market of customers. Is it rare, right? The opportunity offers some novelty that doesn't exist. Costly to imitate, right? Create barriers to entry to other entrepreneurs, and the fit aligns with the skills and knowledge of the entrepreneur's founding team. So when you look at an opportunity, for example, is it valuable to the marketplace? Is there value? Meaning, are people willing to pay for it? The rare, right? The opportunity offers some novelty that doesn't exist, right? You've created something that doesn't necessarily exist at the moment. How expensive is it to imitate, right? How much barrier can you create from other entrepreneurs getting into it? For example, it doesn't take a lot for people to make t-shirts, print t-shirts and sell t-shirts online, right? It doesn't take a much barrier for someone to print t-shirts online and sell them, right? That's not costly to imitate. It's not very costly to do the same thing. I've seen people put like stickers or tags on water bottles and coffee mugs and then sell it. It's not very costly to have a long service business. It may be costly in terms of upgrading your equipment, but basically just get a lawnmower, get a weed whacker, and you go out there and try to get customers. That's not very costly. What I mean by costly to imitate is the more barriers you create for entrepreneurs to enter, the more, and of course there's value into that particular product or service, the more it's not going to be easy for people to replicate your business. For example, not many people can replicate Apple, right? You need billions of dollars to even replicate that. So it's very costly to people to even replicate that. It's very costly to replicate an auto industry. Very costly to replicate Tesla. Some of the most successful companies you see there that are worth in the billions of dollars is very costly to replicate. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't go and start a lawn service business company or a t-shirt based company or a social media marketing or digital marketing company because it's pretty easier barriers of entry. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but just understand that you're going to be in a much more tougher competition market because the barriers to entry are not that difficult. So if you want to build a multi-billion-dollar company, multi-million-dollar company, you have to make it costly to imitate, right? You have to create the barriers to entry for other entrepreneurs. But of course, at the end, you have to make something that the customer is willing to buy. Define pathway. That method assumes opportunities exist independent of entrepreneurs and are waiting to be found. A problem is clear to most, but the entrepreneur acts on the potential solution, right? You find the solution. The search pathway, that's basically that is used when entrepreneurs are not quite sure what type of venture they want to start, but engage in active search to discover new opportunities. The effectuate pathway, that focuses on creating opportunities that simply overcome them and involve using what they have to uncover. Again, take action, see how the market responds, recognize patterns, and learn from iteration to define the opportunity as it evolves. When I started one of my first business ventures, what I did was I didn't spend hundreds and thousands of dollars on it. I created a few videos, put them up online, and see what the market would say, see what patterns I could see, whether or not to continue. That's a good thing I did. I probably invested, I raised close to $5,000 for it, and I put the majority of it into the business. And I found out that it was nice for the videos to be created, but it wasn't going to be able to be scalable where I would make a living off it, or build a high industry. And so, one of the ways that you can find out if there is a marketplace for your product or service is just do a couple of testings, put up a video, or go cut a lawn, or put up a video, or see what happens and see if people are willing to pay for your product or service. Design pathway, right? It's one of the most complex pathways that can be also value creating. So creating a new market, that is extremely expensive. Creating a new market, usually people who have the resources to create a new marketplace, for example, the iPhone, right? Apple created a new marketplace for a new type of phone, right? They created that new marketplace, and so, but you can follow afterwards, right? When the iPhone was created, look at all the things that followed after that. You had the apps being developed, so you could develop an app. The iPhone needs to be cared for, so all of a sudden these new industries started to expand, right? Phone protection cases and glassware for it. So there you can look at that way. And another one of the ideate method to generate high potential ideas. There's a couple of ways to look at it from new idea opportunities. Identify. So find those migraine headache problems that people are willing to pay you money for. So significant problems that need to be solved, and there's a large number of people willing to pay for you for that solution. So if someone is willing to pay you, if a large group of people are willing to pay you to solve their problem, then you probably have a business going, right? Or you can look at something that's being done and you can improve the existing solution. That's another way, right? Discover, right? Search problem-rich environments you are already familiar with. Consider challenges in your everyday life and in areas where you have passions, curiosities, and source of enjoyment. Or think about opportunities elsewhere that may work in your own context. Again, it's discover. Go out there and see what people have problems with that you can solve with your skills and knowledge. The great thing about AI is that you can use AI tools like ChatGPT and Perplexity and others to put in your ideas and see what comes out. Now, of course, all those ideas may not work out, but at least it gives you a resource tool to see what happens. Enhance, of course, add innovation and novelty to existing products or services to make an inferior product service better, right? So the scamper technique is substitute, combine, adapt, modify, put to other uses, eliminate, or reverse. So again, what is an existing product? Perhaps put the scamper technique, find a substitute for that, combine it with something else, adapt it, modify it, put to other uses. So if something is put into one use, put it to perhaps put it in a different environment, see if that works. Anticipate. Look at the unknown future, anticipate changes, and create new ideas or problems on those changes, right? 4 sources of change include societal and demographic. People always change in characteristics of behavior, right? So, right now people want to be healthy. And so look at ways that you can be healthy. Again, technology, it's always changing, increase in possible. So technology is always changing. See what ways that you can create a product for the changing technology. Right now, AI is a new thing. See if you can develop a company or a service based on the AI that's being used. Political and regulatory changes, right? Changes in government laws and regulations. So that's always changing, and see how you can use those governmental laws and regulations that are changing to input a business. And of course, the market industry. So when the market is high, there's always economic shifts and changes in consumer behavior. So when the 2008 financial crisis happened a few years ago, people were being really stringent on their economics and their business. And so what they started to do was, really hone in on their money, and a company called Groupon came along, which was saving people money. And so, of course, Groupon at one point was one of the go-to companies for people to save money. It's still around, but it doesn't have the same promise as it once did. But just to go show you, you can still create a company even when the economy is not doing strong, because there's always a market opportunity there. Target. So create a solution for a specific group. One of the ways that you have to do is, like, when you're creating a company, you cannot be generic and say, oh, it's for everybody. Not every successful company is for everybody. For example, Walmart is not for everybody. Not everybody shops at Walmart. Yes, it's the biggest private company in the world, but not everybody shops at Walmart, right? That's not their cup of tea for people, right? Not everybody's cup of tea is Walmart or Target or Home Depot or Lowe's, right? So create a solution for a specific problem. For example, even Walmart has a specific niche of people they focus on. McDonald's, not everybody's from McDonald's. McDonald's focuses on low-income individuals, people who are low income, or for people who are barely making it. That is their specific group that they focus on, right? They're not too specifically focused on people who make $100,000. Now, I'm not saying because you go to McDonald's that you are low income. I'm not saying that at all. But if you look at at McDonald's, they specifically focus on people who have that type of income that's going to afford their food. And so that's why they have to keep it at low prices, is because if they keep upping their prices, their main consumer base is going to stop going there. So create a solution for a specific group. So focus on a specific group. Are you specifically focused on 18 to 40-year-olds or 18 to 35-year-olds? Are you specifically focused on 35 to 50-year-olds who make a specific income? I'm focused on a specific income. Are you or maybe specific gender, right? For example, there's a fitness company called Orange Theory, and their main consumer base is women who make over $60,000 who have discretional funds to spend on their service. And so that's who they're focused on. I mean, yeah, a man can go, or a person who doesn't make $60,000 or so can still go. I'm not saying they can't, but that's who their specific target market is. So really hone in on who are you trying to target. Evaluate, right? Reduce ideas to most viable. Again, have all these ideas and then shift them down to see which one is going to stick the most. Put them out there. That's why you just got to go out there and see what exists. And also work on ideas that have potential. If your idea does not have any potential, stop wasting your time and your money into it. If there's no marketplace for it, then stop wasting your time and figure out something else that does. Also, go do a Google search. Nobody should ever come and write and say, no one's ever thought about this before. Believe me, someone has thought about your idea and actually tried it. Maybe it worked, maybe it didn't. But you can never say, no one's ever thought about this, because someone has thought about this, right? Go and see if your idea exists, okay? I'm pretty sure if you have an idea and you put it into Google, I'm pretty sure there's a company out there that's already doing what you're doing. That doesn't mean you can't go do it, but you just have to find a different way of doing it than they do, right? And so you definitely have to go out and see if it's already been done. So, for example, if you want to go do a lawn service company, there's thousands of them. You're just gonna have to find a specific niche, and you're gonna have to go find customers. Again, using the idea to shape one idea, right? The modern day gourmet food truck is one of those, right? First and third person opportunities. For example, the first person opportunity is defined by our own personal lens through which we view the world. Again, limited to our immediate environment and daily life. The thing about first person opportunities is, yes, through our worlds and the lens of what we see opportunities, but of course it's limited because it's only through our lens and through our views. Third person opportunities focus on much more spectrum of significant problems to solve for consumers, right? Opportunities for someone else. Ideas may be more innovative and higher potential. So again, look at it from your perspective, but then also put a different perspective on it and see it from the third person eye viewpoint, or put it out there and see what people think about it. Challenges for moving from idea to opportunity. Even when there's a market for an entrepreneur's, your product or your service, right? Nascent entrepreneurs of all kinds still face challenges, right? Again, you're gonna face challenges. The marketplace, where you live, the resources, there's going to be issues, right? Societal factors mean that entrepreneurial drive doesn't always translate into entrepreneur success, right? Again, it takes more than just drive. You can work on something 24/7. You can have all the motivation you want, but sometimes the marketplace just doesn't want it, or you're gonna have to have some access to capital. May be a challenge to other folks than others, right? Sometimes it just takes a network, or sometimes it just takes luck to drive your opportunity. So again, you can put all the focus and things into your opportunity, but if you don't have access to capital, if people don't want your product or service, it's going to make it difficult to run that business. Again, challenges from moving from idea to opportunity. Those who execute on opportunities are more likely to have access to networks, information, and capital. So you have to execute on your opportunities. That is just one of the things. I mean, if you just sit there behind the computer and don't do anything about it, you don't execute, you're not going to see perhaps if it has opportunities. There's still, unfortunately, some roadblocks for folks of color. Entrepreneurs of color are 30% more likely than white entrepreneurs to face roadblocks. There has been significant improvements. There have been more improvements of access to capital. More venture capitalists out there are providing those opportunities, but there's still some roadblocks. As society continues to get better and better, we hope those roadblocks are down. And of course, entrepreneurship is often considered a democratizing force in the world. But of course, the ability to sustain a business is very challenging. You can start a business, but to sustain it can be very difficult. And that is chapter 4 of this chapter 4 from the Entrepreneurship textbook, 3rd edition. Thank you.